Hello and welcome to Scale to Seven Figures and our $1 Million Fireside Chat. I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor, Virtual CFO with Anavo Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million Mentor. And I am excited you are joining me. Scale to Seven Figures is an interactive group of small business owners in the business to corporate, and business to government markets who are ready to scale their businesses to the next level. Our group is an opportunity to share, learn, and grow together without competition. Each week, I bring tips, tactics, and strategies through our $1 Million Masterclasses and our $1 Million Fireside Chats. If you are not familiar with us, head on over to www.scaletosevenfigures.com and check us out. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy our next powerful conversation. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's $1 Million Fireside Chat. And happy Veterans Day. It's a great day. I've been saying this over the last several days, but I've also been saying this for quite some time. It is great to be an American right now, and it's even greater when you have the military on your side. And so I want to say happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. I'm not a veteran, but I have plenty of veterans in my family, and very, very proud to have that, to say that we have veterans as affiliations, as family and friends, and clients and partners across the board. So happy Veterans Day to everybody. I'm excited that you're joining me again today. We are streaming live from 4 different locations. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on YouTube, and on Facebook. It's actually 5 different locations because we're streaming on Facebook in 3 different areas. So I want to welcome you all, no matter where you're listening in. We want to make sure that we are able to reach out and touch you from across the gamut. I am Lisa Anderson, your Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with Anavo Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million Mentor. And our theme for this month of November is building equity and increasing your chances of making meaningful investments that strengthen your legacy. Legacy building is what I'm all about. It's not just about starting a business and building a business, but it's also staying in business long enough to build a legacy and creating strength along the way to ensure that that legacy has value. And so these conversations are stemmed around making certain that we are building profitable and sustainable legacies. And we're continuing that conversation this month in November. Last week, I delivered a full masterclass where I addressed the key components of equity and how to focus on equitable growth in business and where to invest throughout various life cycles of your business. In every phase is something different that you should be focused in terms of investing to make certain that your legacy is growing and strengthening. So if you missed that, head on over to www.anavots.com/masterclass-replay and check out the replay from last week's session. Today, we are going to continue that conversation and address ways to invest in equitable affiliations while building your legacy. My guest today is Leonardo McClarty, and he is the president and CEO of Howard County Chamber of Commerce. And he's going to share with us ways to establish purposeful, meaningful, and equitable relationships with your local Chamber of Commerce. So give me 1 second and I will bring Leonardo on. Good evening, my friend. How are you?
Hello there. How are you?
Welcome. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me and the opportunity to talk about the Chamber and our industry and ways in which we can help businesses continue to grow and thrive.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited about this conversation. I've been affiliated with you and the Chamber for a long time, and just being able to have this discussion is exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Go
No, I
ahead.
was going to say, I think so. I mean, and you know, obviously you're one of my favorite people and have been involved, like you said, for a number of years. And so it's good to be able to sit down and have this chat.
Yes, absolutely. So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about who you are and tell us a little bit about the Howard County Chamber.
Okay. Well, a little bit about me, native of the Atlanta area. And so I've been really happy over these last few days in terms of seeing how my folks in Georgia have turned out. And I won't say much more than that. Other than I used to run the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce in DeKalb County, Georgia, which is also in the Metro Atlanta area. And so my background is economic development, small business development policy, and so forth. So I've worked at the state of Georgia for a couple of years, worked at also another city in the Metro Atlanta area before moving over to the DeKalb Chamber, where I was there for almost 10 years. And then ultimately was ready for some new opportunities and headed up this way and had a brief pit stop in York, PA, but ultimately have been here in Howard County for now 6 years. And so it's been a good move. And so the Howard County Chamber, one, we're first and foremost, we're a business organization. Again, and we like to say we focus in three areas: people, policy, and prosperity. And so when it comes to people, those are the programs and the things that we do to help people get connected to one another, to expand their relationships, also to find out about resources that can continue to help them grow, whether that's their business or to help them grow personally. When we talk about policy, that's the role of the chamber as a business advocate, a business voice, where we work closely with our elected officials, appointed officials, again, on issues that would be of interest to business. And then lastly, the prosperity, that's really focused on the economic and community development work that we do. Again, trying to make sure that our respective community, in this case, Howard County, that it's a place where, again, businesses can grow. It's a place where we have, safe communities, clean streets, and prosperous businesses.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. I mean, you kind of summed up some of the questions that I have for you in terms of what exactly is a chamber of commerce. I love how you broke it down into those three key areas. One of the things that I focus on when I help small businesses in particular build strategy is focusing in on the meaningful, purposeful relationships, right? Building your network. And I like to say that your network is your net worth.
Mhm.
We've heard that, but it's not really just a cliche. It is real,
Yeah.
right? And you just broke that down. But what I'd like to do is kind of stay there for a second and talk a little bit about some of the areas where there may be some misconceptions about the Chamber of Commerce and how to engage with them and what the purpose is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there are probably several misconceptions, or and in some cases, I won't even call them a misconception. I'll call it maybe a misunderstanding. And
Mhm.
there's some areas where chambers as an industry where we got work to do. So I think the first is sometimes people will see in a chamber and they see maybe the sponsors and they think, oh, well, I'm a small business. And so this chamber doesn't care about me. They're just about the big guys. And most local chambers, and in this case, for this conversation, I'm going to define local as your county chamber or maybe a city chamber or what have you. But in most instances, that's far from the truth. Most chambers are probably 75, 80% small business. And when I'm saying small business here, I'm not even using the SBA definition of small business. I'm talking small business like 10 employees, 25 employees, 5 employees, mom and pop shops. However, what happens is it may be the banks, it may be your car dealerships that have the wherewithal to be able to support at a higher level. So thus, that's who you see advertised in supporting chambers at different events. And so thus people think that, oh, chambers are for big guys. So I think that's one of the misconceptions, is that chambers are for just large companies. I think another one, and this is one of those places where I say chambers have work to do, is the fact that chambers generally have been void of diversity. And so, let's call it what it is. And so if in many respects, historically, you haven't seen in a lot of chambers women, you haven't always seen you know, Black people in leadership. He hadn't also seen other people of color. And so thus, you know, everyone wants to see someone that looks like them, whether that's gender, ethnicity, business type, business size, where the business is located. You got to find some type of way to connect. And so I think at times chambers haven't found that way to connect. But I can tell you from sitting on our national board, I just rolled off, that is one of the areas that we've been focused on for the last 3 years as part of our strategic plan. It's been a focus of many different conferences that we've had. It's really talking about how chambers can be, as an industry in and of itself, can become more diverse. Because, you know, if you're in the Southeast, maybe diversity really centers around color. But if you're in other parts of the country, maybe if you're out West, now you're talking about dealing with, okay, are you attracting maybe your Hispanic businesses? Do they feel like they can become involved? If you go to another part of the country, Midwest, maybe it's the American Indian or Native American. So in many respects, each maybe part of the country has its own challenge there. But ultimately, I think the big thing, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, is if you have an interest, like with anything, you got to get in and get involved. And in some places, you've got to pave the way for others.
Yeah. So once again, you touched on a lot of key things. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I've been involved with the Howard County Chamber for many years. So 7 for me. So I just missed about 1 year, or you missed about 1 year.
Yes.
with me. But, you know, every year for me, the engagement has deepened, right? So I started just participating in the events, and then I started to participate on a committee, then became committee chair, and now a part of the board. And I have a lot of small business owners who ask me, why do you do that? Why do you give up so much time? And then how did you choose to connect with and deepen your relationship with the Howard County Chamber of Commerce? And everything you just said is the reason behind it all. It's about the synergy. It's about the diversification. It's about the connection and the leadership. I mean, me being involved to this extent with the Howard County Chamber of Commerce has everything to do with your leadership. Everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a couple of other things too, you know, as you talk to your clients and for those that are watching, I think the other thing is thinking about, and again, part of this whole thing is making strategic decisions. So first and foremost, if you think about yourself, and folks will say, okay, well, first of all, Lisa, your business is not even in Howard County.
Right.
However, when you got involved, it was because we had just started our GovConnects program, which is our B2G effort. So first and foremost, we had a program that spoke to clients you were trying to serve.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. So secondly, I remember used to participate in our CFO roundtable. And so being that, you know, you provide, you know, advisory and contractual CFO services. And that was, again, another sweet spot to be able to network with your peers as well as the folks that we were bringing in. So again, we had something there that you could benefit from. But then I think the other piece, as we start seeing you and then you get tapped, hey, can you join this committee? Because we're thinking about starting a women's conference. And obviously that who knew at that time that would truly be something you'd be really passionate about. Yeah, you're a woman-owned business. That doesn't mean that you're passionate about starting a conference. But I think from there, again, it's the fact of, as people look at organizations, thinking about where am I trying to go with my business, and what does this organization offer me that could really help me to grow and advance. And also thinking about it. The other thing I was going to mention today is really thinking about the fact that sometimes you do have to give before you get, and you can't always be so transactional when you think about your professional organizations. Oftentimes what small businesses will do is they will look to a professional organization, whether that's a chamber, business association, professional association, and the minute that they don't get business, they immediately say, oh, well, I didn't get anything from it. And the thing that I oftentimes like to say is, okay, well, I understand you may have payroll to make, you got mortgages, you got kids in college, you got daycare. I get all that. But the other thing of it is, if I offered you something to where you became a better business owner, a better business professional, that's value in and of itself. And so you think about everything we've been going through over the last several months with the coronavirus and its impact, and the fact that I know from us how many workshops we've had, but we've brought SBA in, we've brought other larger CPAs in to talk about different, the ways that the policies are working and where you can get direct answers. That in and of itself is valuable. If I gave you something that if you left knowing more than you did coming in, that's of value. Yes. And so I think that's the thing that oftentimes, you have to constantly continue to think about, where am I trying to go and how can this organization help me get there?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I learned throughout business. So I've personally been in business for 23 years. So it's been a while. But in the early days, I had to learn the concept of give, get, right? So you got to show up, you got to participate, you have to give value. And then through that process, you get something in return. And what I found through, just being involved, finding that niche area, like the Women's Leadership Conference and some of the other areas that I participated in, it's given me an opportunity to share my value. It's given me an opportunity to get out front and be front of mind with a lot of individuals and organizations that I otherwise would never have met. You've introduced me to a number of people, just because I'm a member, because I'm involved. And then, finally, one of the things that we always want to be is in the room with some key decision makers. And I get to be in a room with some key decision makers.
And I think the other thing that you touched on, and I think that gets back to the involvement piece, is the fact that when you become involved, you become known. And one of the things that it's really hard at times for small businesses, especially when, you don't have, when you don't have maybe the huge marketing budgets, is how do you distinguish yourself? Mm-hmm. And so easily, if I just look at your name as an example and I see CPA, well, I still don't really know what you do. I may immediately start thinking about, obviously I know that certified public accountant, and I'm thinking about maybe everything from, financial statements and maybe tax preparation, and maybe you've been there and done that, but I don't really understand that other piece where it's like, hey, the fact that I'm really helping you strategically grow your business financially, that maybe so you don't have to have that in-house CFO and pay that, everything that goes along with it. I can be your strategic advisor, but certain things I don't really know and understand oftentimes about, I would say in a broader sense, chamber members until they get involved in the committees.
Right.
The other thing of it that I would say the advantage of committee participation, it allows the person in my chair to really see how you work. And what I mean by that is, if you're chairing a committee, is your committee tight? Does your committee start its meetings on time? Is it run efficiently? Are the programs that you're scheduling related to that committee, again, are they value adds? Are you the person that, if anything, you're pinging me to see, hey, look, I think we got a meeting scheduled. I've drafted an agenda, as opposed to me having to chase you down. So ultimately, all of that gets to where when I get a chance to see you work, and then it's like, okay, well, I probably know what kind of business person this is just by how he or she runs this committee. And then when we start talking about maybe other leadership positions, whether that's a board or what have you, well, I can vouch for you in the sense of, hey, yeah, they may have been self-nominated as an example, but I've had a chance to work alongside them for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. And this is how they would add value to the board. So I think that's the thing that it's like your parents tell you you're always being watched when you're in school and you don't even know, when people are, or in my case, I grew up playing sports and, someone's always watching you on the field, and they say the eye in the sky don't lie.
I like that.
and so and so I think that's the thing, here as well, that getting involved again just allows you to be seen, and also, like you said, allows you to make deeper relationships. Because, and I use this example as well, pre-COVID, you go to different events, maybe there's 60 people in the room, 100, 150, depending on the organization, the event. And it's real easy to walk in and wow, it can be intimidating when you don't know anyone. Yeah. Whereas if you've been involved in a committee, in that committee, that's 8 or 9 people that you've met with probably pretty consistently over a period of months. So now when you walk in the room, you look up and it's, oh, there's Joe, there's John, there's Jack, there's Kelly, whomever, and you immediately have someone you go talk to. Then there's people that they're introducing you to, and all of a sudden that room of 100 has shrunk really down to maybe 50 or so, and it doesn't feel so intimidating. Yeah. And so that's the other advantage of just when you get involved in your organizations, is it really helps to start breaking down some of those barriers that we face, where it can be intimidating when you walk into these large settings and so forth.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit, because that's key and important when you're an introverted leader, right? Mm-hmm. Which is I'm an introverted leader, mm-hmm. and I value referrals. I value relationships. That is how 90% of my business is grown, based upon those things. But yeah, stepping into a room and networking, it's networking in general is one of those things like, oh my God, I got to do it, but I got to do it. But when you walk in a room, like you said, and you've gotten to know a good amount of people in the room, it's not such a hard thing to do. So,
yeah, no, and absolutely. I mean, I know even for myself, there are times where it's funny, even with me, I have to talk myself, okay, you got to go to this, all right, put your smile face on, or what have you. But, the other thing that I found for myself, but this is just, I guess, as we think about networking, and a few tricks that maybe can help those that are introverted or what have you, is, we're always trying to find something that can break down the barrier. So if I truly know maybe I'm going someplace where I won't know a whole lot of people, I'll put a lapel pin on, something that makes someone say, well, what is that? Or, I'll put my fraternity pin on, again, so that's something that somebody will have, well, ultimately at some point, someone will ask a question, either what is that? Why are you wearing it? Or what have you? So sometimes those are things you can do, that can make it easier to break down those barriers, that also may show that you're approachable. And likewise on the other thing, if you see something else that someone is wearing, that can even give you a reason to say, oh, I see, you're wearing a terrapin pin. Oh, you went to Maryland? Oh, I have a niece that goes there, or I have a son, or whatever. Anything that kind of gives you a reason to talk. Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I would also just add while we're talking about networking is really, truly not, sometimes people really undervalue just a sense of relationship, in the sense that, hey, if I go and I have a conversation with someone, in the minute that maybe I find out that maybe I don't think they can utilize my service or my product, that I want to move on to someone else. But yet we were having a really good conversation and we hit it off. We just had, whether that was, we had some mutual interests, some mutual friends, what have you. And so as you touched on it, the fact of how much business you get from referrals. And so I think not underestimating the business that can come, that we've all heard that saying about people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Yeah. And so if I like you, let's maybe business will find a way to get done, whether that's directly or indirectly. And so I think that's also some of the things that happen sometimes with small business people, is, again, we get so focused on the transaction and lose sight of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, taking a look at the key, I won't say key makeover, but the vast majority of the membership. You mentioned 70 to 80% of the members are small businesses. When you take a look at that, and obviously it's key for small businesses to engage in this process, to engage with the chamber, to build that equitable relationship. What are some of the things that you would recommend for a small business owner right now who just says, I really don't have the time? Because time is a commodity, right? And it's a precious one.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think obviously time is, like you said, it is valuable. So I think the first thing is, I would say, as you're considering that organization, or let's just say, since we're talking chamber, reach out to that chamber executive and say, look, can I schedule some time to talk to you? That I'm interested in your organization, and I want to find out more about your programs. But the other thing I would also say specifically, think about your business as an example and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. There have been times, where we've had members to pay and to become members, and then they drop their membership. And we say, well, what can you tell me the reason that you didn't, renew? And they might say, oh, I didn't get anything out of it. But then if I ask them the question, what was it that you were seeking that you did not find? And then they can't answer the question. Mm-hmm. So the big thing is time is always going to, it's almost like if you're doing it right, you're never going to have enough time. So the thing to think about is, okay, what am I seeking? And then go have a conversation with, again, that president, executive director, membership director, whatever the title might be, and talk about, hey, these are my goals. This is this is who I'm trying to meet, what I'm trying to, learn, what have you. What programs do you have that speak to this? And then attend, when there's time, that program or two, to then determine, exactly, was it beneficial for you, again, time-wise and the other. But I think first and foremost, starting out with a conversation with an organization representative, because that'll also tell you a lot about that organization. If you request a meeting and you can't get one, or if you request, you send an email and it's not responded to, but then realistically, I would say, 24, 48 hours, and there was no out of office reply that basically said, I'm away on travel, I'm on vacation, or whatever. Well, that starts to tell you that will trigger, okay, is this a good investment of my money? Yeah. That they should be responsive to you in the event, especially when you say, I'm interested in joining, which on my side of the table says, you're interested in giving me money. And so if that's the case, have that conversation, but be prepared going in as to, okay, to be able to talk about what it is that you want from it as well. And that's how you can then start talking about a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah. That's how you and I spoke about,
Mm-hmm.
The different levels that I've gotten involved in. We had a conversation about what does the next level look like? How can I help the chamber? And then how can the chamber help me at those levels? We had those, what I like to call black coffee conversations.
Right. And you got to have them. And again, it just helps it to where everybody can continue to know where each one is coming from.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is, I found that when I have a conversation with a member, again, I better understand kind of their business, who it is that they're trying to meet, how I can assist them, or what have you. You become top of mind. Case in point, when we were doing County Executive Ball's Small Business Seminar Series, and we were talking about the lending process and what small businesses need to be aware of. Well, immediately I was thinking two things. Well, the first was, okay, I know I need a CPA part of this group, and one that works with small businesses. So that's where, okay, you came into mind. But then the fact that I ended up learning the work that you're doing with SBA, as it were. And so with so many challenges that our small businesses are facing, with particular minority businesses, with accessing some of the federal loan programs, it was like, okay, this is the person right here that needs to be a part of this conversation. Yeah. And then subsequently, you participate And we had a phenomenal, I think, session there. And then later on, one of the other members from a different session contacts me after to say, hey, I need to get Lisa's information.
Yep.
And so I think that's, just one of those things where the more that we understand what people do, we can put them in places to be successful.
And I was going to ask you to share a success story. You just did it. And we didn't talk about success stories, but I mean, that's a really good example because that happened recently, as in a couple of weeks ago. And since that, participating on, in that event, I've had 10 different conversations.
Wow.
I've established 4 new strategic partnerships, and I've onboarded 2 new clients as a result. So that's just a really good example of how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know where to go from here. This is a great conversation. Okay. So here's another question. So when, as a small business owner, when should I start to consider engaging with a chamber of commerce?
I've been thinking about, kind of that, and I think it's going to vary for each business. I would say for some, it probably should be, and I would even say maybe for most, it should be when you're in the early stage of your business development or business cycle, when you need resources, when maybe you don't have, say, for instance, a dedicated banking relationship, or you're looking for a CPA, you don't maybe have an attorney that you regularly can call. Better yet, when you're trying to find affordable ways to get training and development. I mean, the one thing that the chambers often do is a number of different small business seminars. And because we have so many small businesses, I mean, oftentimes we may not be charging any more than maybe it could be sometimes free for members. Maybe it's $20 for members, which, is not a lot of money. And so depending, a lot of times chambers from a professional development, training and development can really be a good plus when you're on the early stage of your business because of the different resources that you now have access to, and the way they can help you connect the dots. I think when you're at a older or maybe you're in maybe growth mode or more established, then the chamber helps you because of, again, as you touched something you said, Lisa, because now it's about who can I get in the room with.
Yeah.
It's not about me running to the mailbox. Did I get paid? Because my cash flow was pretty good. I've got other people to do that. So now I can think about big picture and who is it that I want to get a chance to know and to be around, and again, having that network. So I think part of it is people thinking differently based upon where they are in their business life cycle. Yeah. And I think that's, definitely one of the things you got to do when you're considering, again, joining a chamber. The other thing is that I would say that people oftentimes will ask me is, do I have to be in Howard County to be a member of the Howard County Chamber? And I would say no. And the same goes for, you don't have to be in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax, wherever, to be a part of those chambers if they have programs that are meeting your business needs, or if it's an area of business, or rather if it's a place where you're looking to grow and develop your business. Because the other thing that the chamber is going to do is give you insights as to what's going on in that business community. Yep. And to help you get a sense of, hey, what's taking place here? Those things that you just can't find. Yeah, you can go to the economic development website, you can go to the chamber website, and you can read, but you don't necessarily always get a flavor until you've actually set foot in and you've had a conversation and you got a chance to see it, feel it, touch it. So that's the other thing as well.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, as I mentioned, we could talk forever because this is really good conversation and a lot of good food for thought. And I'm hoping that the small businesses who are listening in are taking note, because your network is your net worth. It absolutely is. And this is a great way to build and expand upon that. So I appreciate you. Tell us a
Thank
little bit
you.
about what's coming up with Howard County Chamber. What's new? What's exciting? I know there's been a lot of changes this year.
Yes, it has been a lot of changes. I think much like we all have become probably Zoom experts and can tell you all the differences between Zoom and Teams and WebEx and Google Meets and everything else. But interestingly enough for us, it's, at this time of the year, we're trying to continue to finish and prepare for the remaining 2 months, but also thinking about Q1 of the next year. And so the big thing is, in the immediate sense, is we do an annual economic forecast with a known economist named Anirban Basu. So that's coming up on the 18th, and so of November. So that's always highly informative. But then as we look to next year, honestly, what we're trying to do right now is balance between we're hearing, we know that businesses want a network, and that's probably the one thing that's been the most difficult during this whole pandemic, is that you can get information, but just the ability to press the flesh and work a room and so forth. So, we've tried to start doing more with breakout rooms and so forth. But for us, it's looking at different technology platforms that can allow people to be able to network better. So there's one we're actually going to be trying out with our young professionals group in December, that basically kind of to give you a little quick glimpse of how it works. Imagine speed dating, but for business. And the way it works is the two business people, much like you and I, one-on-one, but you get a chance to set the timer for about anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. And we're in kind of our room by ourselves. At the end of that 8 minutes, it basically puts us in another room with somebody else. And then we get a chance to have another conversation. And the other thing it allows you to do is to take notes that are just privy to yourself. So you could say, wow, I had a great conversation with Lisa. Or you could say, man, I don't know if I want to note to self, but so we're looking at a couple of platforms. The other thing is obviously trying to figure out how we can, continue with the programming for next year. Probably looking at, again, a lot of the early part of Q1 being virtual, but then looking at how do we start then live streaming, where we may have a limited in-person people as we get into maybe March, but then still having it online with the goal of being about third or fourth quarter next year. Hopefully, we can at least be able to start having some more actual in-person events, even if it's at a smaller number of participants. So that's kind of some of the things that we're looking at. The other big thing I will say that, though, if you do want to meet some folks, we're doing an actual, what we're calling a lunch tailgate. That's on the 19th. And so it's going to be outside. It will be at a Great Harvest Bread Company in Columbia. And so basically there's no charge. It's from 11:30 to 1. Come by. We'll have individually packaged sandwiches, that kind of deal, chips, drinks. But the whole idea of it, just while people are maybe out and about and grabbing lunch, they can come, meet a few folks, exchange some business cards, still have their mask on, outside, still can have the appropriate distance, but still be able to at least meet some people that they don't know. Right. And so we did this, I guess, back in October for coffee, and it was a big hit. And so, so that's kind of what's up for the chamber over the next, period.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Lots of exciting things going on, and making this transition to virtual and the technology. I mean, it's been exciting, actually. It's had its challenges, but it's been exciting.
It has, and I think ultimately what it's going to do is it's challenged all of us to think about things in terms of, one, efficiencies, but also just to think about, it's made us better, I think. It's been painful, but the fact is, I think now, I was talking to a banker just yesterday, and he was sharing that, so he's a commercial lead in Howard County, but his CEO sits in Rockville. And he was saying how, he said, before I'm driving an hour to Rockville to meet with him maybe an hour, 2 hours, then an hour back. And now he and I are meeting either over Teams or Zoom, and we're still getting the same thing done. You know, he was saying how because they were merged with another bank, his team has grown, I think, from either 5 or 6 to 9. And so his area has grown. But, I think with, the big thing with the technology now, we're having to really ask ourselves, I think on certain meetings, okay, is this really going back to your comment about the utilization of time? Yeah. Do I really need to drive an hour to have this meeting? Or can we perhaps, between screen sharing and everything else, can we meet and become more, efficient and productive? So I think it's, at the end of the day, we all are going to be better because we're being forced to look at our business model and figure out, is this the best way to get things done?
Yeah, absolutely. One last question, and it's not the question I told you I was going to ask. But we are all heading into a new administration. And the question of the day is, how do I prepare for any changes that are coming with a new administration? So my question to you is, how does the chamber, or how will the chamber help businesses in general prepare for the changing of the guard?
Well, I think that's a great question. So, matter of fact, we've got 2 events coming up that kind of actually touch on that. One is a smaller, more private event that we do for, government contractors, but the other one actually, in fact, is tomorrow. We're actually having an economist from BNY Mellon that's going to be on as part of what we call our Scale Up series. Okay. And so, but ultimately talking about how businesses can be prepared with the new administration. I think part of the positive, I guess, in some respects, I think just looking forward, and thinking about is that in President-elect Biden's case, you've got someone that's been in government for a while, and you kind of have a good sense of kind of his, I guess, maybe political philosophies or what have you, as opposed to, and this isn't not to get into kind of whether you like him or dislike him, but let's just say, for instance, 4 years ago, when President Trump was coming in, this was someone that had no public record. Right. So you really didn't know what to expect. And so I think in some respects with President-elect Biden, you probably have a little bit more consistency. I also think that, things probably won't be quite as subject to change. Because again, you'll have, I'd like to think, someone that might be a little bit more steady, just in terms of decision making and how and a little bit more methodical in approach. And
I like that word. You said steady, not stable. I like that, steady. I'm gonna remember that.
So those are the thing there. But I think right now, what I would probably say is, definitely spending that first year and these next 6 months, really kind of, I would say, kind of focused on your business, focused inwardly, and just obviously paying attention to what's taking place. Because if you just think about it from what you've seen in history, the first year is full of people, you're appointing new cabinet members, and you've got confirmations, and so and in light of how Congress is getting along, or in some cases not getting along, things may take longer to get through the process than maybe normal. So you figure that first year, there's just a host of new appointments, and especially the fact that you're moving from a Republican regime to a Democratic regime, you truly are going to have at the cabinet level, a number of different people in place. Yeah. Whereas I would say easily this time next year, you have a good sense of, I would think the major cabinet appointees will be in place, and so forth. But I would say, you're going to have a lot of change. I would also say for those that probably are government contractors, making sure that they stay in contact with the folks that they normally work with, that, kind of at the worker bee level, the people that don't change as much, that they just keep their head down and try to stay above the political fray.
Yeah. But they know a lot about change is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ears to the ground. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing all of this. I mean, this is really good information. Touched on a lot of key points that I think are extremely important to small businesses. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about the chamber.
Yeah, so for me, you can visit the Howard County Chamber at www.howardchamber.com. That's howardchamber.com. Or you can reach me via email. It's my first initial and last name, as you see on the screen here. So L. McClarty at howardchamber.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Leonardo. I appreciate you sticking in there with us this afternoon and sharing this information. And hopefully we'll have some new members coming into the chamber after this.
Hey, hopefully so. And just thank you for this, opportunity to talk and for thinking about us. And so, and again, I, look forward to hearing, from those out there. If you have any questions on the chamber or what have you, or just Howard County as a place to do business, certainly feel free to reach out.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.
All right. So deepening your affiliation with the Chamber of Commerce is absolutely significant. It helps you to increase your exposure, as you heard. And quite frankly, it gives you the credibility that you need as a business. And then also, it can also put you on the pathway to achieving your first or next $1 million in business. As I mentioned earlier, I've made a lot of great connections as a result of my affiliation with the Howard County Chamber of Commerce. So as we said several times throughout today's conversation, you must remember that your network is your net worth, and the chamber can help you build your net worth by building your network. And as Leonardo said, you have to be involved in order to be known. So as a small business owner, think about your local Chamber of Commerce. Think about, if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, think about the Howard County Chamber of Commerce and how the chamber can actually help you in your business. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I will be back next week to continue this conversation on investing in equitable affiliations. Lisa Nichols, the president of the D.C. Chamber of the National Association of Women Business Owners, or NABO, will be joining me to have another conversation. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. And until then, I want to thank you guys again for joining me. I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with Novel Transformation Solutions, your $1 million mentor. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.